David J. Maloney. This week, David talks with singer and songwriter Livingston Taylor. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience to the weekly show. I am your host, David J. Maloney. I say normally because we'd usually shoot the show before a small studio audience at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, but we are still shooting from home due to coronavirus concerns. We do hope to gain clearance to get back to our live-to-tape shows soon. So, President Biden traveled to Philadelphia for the 50th anniversary of Amtrak. Hunter wasn't there, which was fortunate, because the last thing Amtrak needs is another train wreck. In Syracuse, New York, a 2-year-old girl somehow got stuck inside an iron claw machine. She was eventually freed, but it did take $40 in tokens. No, let's try that again. In Syracuse, New York, a 2-year-old girl got stuck inside an iron claw machine. The cool thing is that her brother won enough tickets whilst getting her out to also get a small Super Soaker and 2 ring pops and a pack of sweet tarts. Okay, maybe third time's a charm. In Syracuse, New York, a 2-year-old girl got stuck inside an iron claw machine. Sadly, whilst refilling their token card after spending $40 trying to grab her, another family used the machine and took her home after only one try. Let's see. A New York man was arrested after bragging about his involvement in the Capitol riots on a dating app. So, swipe extreme right if you enjoy long walks on the beach and insurrections. Oh, and did you hear this? Scientists have found a 2,000-year-old pregnant Egyptian mummy. Yep, and Maury Povich has already vowed to find the father. Bones dating all the way back to the Ice Age have been found in Las Vegas, Nevada. They were found in a ditch, along with 2 free buffet vouchers and tickets to see Wayne Newton. Lastly, Randy Quaid has announced that he plans to run against Caitlyn Jenner for governor of California. And now we know the plot to National Lampoon's California Vacation. On this week's show, we've got the ever-talented musician Livingston Taylor. Livingston has charted his own course in the world of music in many of the same ways that his brother James Taylor has. He's been a professor at the Berklee School of Music for 30 years. He's here to chat about his life, music, and the industry. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
Stick out your arms, run real fast, pick up your feet, and wow, we're headed for the blue, but things get clear.
And we are back. Our featured guest tonight is a fantastically talented musician and storyteller who's worked with some of the best musicians, singers, and performers in music. He's charted his own course in the music world with his hit single, I Will Be in Love with You, and his many albums sometimes featuring duets and combinations across music, from Vince Gill to Carly Simon. Here to chat with us tonight is Livingston Taylor. Liv, welcome to the show.
David, such a pleasure to be with you this evening, and thank you so much for having me on.
So you come from what seems like a real family of singers. What was your home life like, and where did you spend your childhood?
Well, there were 5 siblings, oldest brother Alex, my beautiful brother James, widely known and admired, and for good reason, my sister Kate, who incidentally is just releasing a new record called Why Wait, and myself, and then a younger brother, Hugh, all densely close in age. Hugh was born, oldest brother was 6 years old, so we're a very compact family. Lost our oldest brother, coming up on 3 decades ago, still sorely missed. And so we were born in Boston, raised in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, got to adolescence, and then we scattered our ways, tended back up to the New England area where we are now.
So you, James, Kate, and Alex all went on to become performers. And I'm kind of curious as to how fast those interests developed. I mean, what did each of you think you were going to be when you guys were growing up?
Or was it always, or did it just click and be music and that was kind of it? Or how did that happen?
No, I'm asked this question occasionally, David, and it's not just that we can make music. We're also very capable of being in public, and that's my father was a very charismatic public man, eventually became dean of the medical school at the University of North Carolina. We were used to being a public people, and we were used to being seen and known. And so it's not just making music. Making music is important, but the question always becomes not only can you create it, can you present your creation? Can can you accompany your creation to the marketplace? And that's a very different skill set. And if asked, I would say that clearly our ability not just to make music, but to take that music on stage is quite unique.
How is it that folk music found its way with each of you?
Well, I think that folk music. My mother and both my parents, but my mother in particular, really liked folk music. There were Woody Guthrie albums around. In my formative years, I'm 70 now, so I was born in 1950, and in my early years, the folk music of the late 50s, early 60s was really in the fore. Bob Dylan, Peter, Paul and Mary, the Kingston Trio. So that was a very popular format. And it had a simplicity of chords that was pretty accessible for a guy like me. And so I gravitated towards that. And the phrase folk music often fits when you play an acoustic guitar. So, if I've got an acoustic guitar here, folk music, folk music, folk music, folk music, folk music. So, obviously, eventually, we get to these 7/9 chords. Not scared of a diminished chord at this point. So that folk music just morphs into those 7/9s and diminished and flat 13s and that array of tonality that's out there. I've gotten you off your subject. My apologies.
No, I enjoyed it, honestly. So you've talked glowingly about your brother Alex and the influence he had on you, and I think he was the first one who showed you that you could earn a living playing music.
Yes. When I was 12 or 13, my brother Alex, who was probably 16 or 17 at the time, played at a fraternity house at the University of North Carolina. And he came home and he had made $20 or something, and that made a real impression on me. This notion that you could make money and make a living. Yes. I knew that school and I did not get along terribly well. I was a curious sort, but and read fine, but didn't really couldn't write, and have never been able to write well. I sort of have a language that I write in, and with spell checking, I can communicate through a keyboard now, but through a typewriter now. But when I was, it was clear to me that I was going to have to invent a life for myself. And when I saw that you could make a living making music, that was very compelling to me.
And I know you've talked before about how you kind of knew your brother, James Taylor, was kind of different from an early age. How did you know? How did that manifest itself?
It was clear to me that James had a capacity to be to withstand being the center of attention, and it's not that like one of the things that's really remarkable when you see these people who go out on stage, who take an entire audience on their shoulders. A Michael Jackson, a Bruno Mars. This is a big, big weight. Bruce Springsteen, Lady Gaga, Madonna, Beyonce. These are heavy, heavy weights to lift. And this really isn't understood when somebody says, well, I want to be a star. And you go, really? Okay. And so that notion, it was clear to me that that James could carry that load in a very responsible way, and that is not a given. Many people think that it is. Well, if I get the break, I'll be able to do this, that, or the other. And the answer is not necessarily so.
Now, I believe it was James who actually taught you how to play guitar, right? What's the story there?
Well, certainly James was my first teacher. I was the younger brother, and I'd watch him play, and I'd pick up the guitar and mimic some of the things that he was doing. And if I didn't get it right, he'd punch me in the arm, and then he'd show me how to do it right. So for the price of a sore arm, I had a wonderful teacher.
I watched Carole King once introduce James for his guitar playing rather than his singing or storytelling. Would you say his skills, especially when it comes to like arrangements, that they seem to be somewhat underappreciated or perhaps taken for granted, no?
I think that it is for James Taylor, such is the case with Paul Simon. When you hear Mrs. Robinson and you hear Paul Simon playing that acoustic guitar, I'm telling you, he's a monster player, a monster guitar player. And you think about somebody like Nat King Cole, a monster piano player. I love to quiz my students and ask them, can Aretha Franklin play the piano? And they don't know or haven't bothered to find out. And the answer is she's an unbelievable piano player.
So at some point you were signed to Capricorn Records and then Epic. What was that journey like for you to get to that point?
Well, in those days, first off, something happened, in my opinion, in the early 60s. Multi-track recording became available. And what that did was that just blew the marketing of music wide open, because now you could take a singer-songwriter, for example. And if you listen to old tapes of Cole Porter singing his songs, Cole Porter just wasn't a very good singer. Post 1960, with multi-track recording, somebody like Cole Porter, somebody indeed like Carole King. Carole King was able to make Tapestry as a result of no longer needing a world-class singer to sing her song. She's a fine singer, but she's not a one take, there are 70 people in the studio, everybody needs to do their job right now. And what multi-track recording allowed was singer-songwriters to come to the fore. You could write a song, record it with a band, the band could leave, and you could take a week, a month, a year to get your part right.
I know that you've got kind of an interesting perspective on how technology and the internet now has kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, diluted I don't want to say the talent pool, I think it almost seems like maybe a cultivation of the talent pool. Because I remember seeing an interview where you were talking about how with the internet now anybody can get on and anybody can do something, whereas before it used to be much more competitive to impress a producer.
When I was starting out, a record company, if you wanted to record your music, recording was expensive. So the recording studio cost $250,000, and a lot of people wanted access to that. There was a gatekeeper at the door of that recording studio, and the gatekeeper, sometimes it manifested as the head of a record company, sometimes it manifested as a producer or other items, but they certainly weren't your mother. And and so they would say, play me what you've got. I'll let you know if you can come in. And it had to meet a certain bar. What the internet allowed is the internet allowed access for all. The internet eviscerated the income stream that allowed gatekeepers to concentrate talent. Let me be as clear as a bell with you. Great art is the result of wealth concentrating talent. Now you can get a great engineer. Now you can get a studio. Now you can buy record promotion and tour support. All of this infrastructure that went into fine tuning, all of this, there's a phrase by Abraham Lincoln, a spark still has to find a dry field. A spark is not enough. And so now the difficulty is that if a gatekeeper says to me, Livingston, you're not good enough, I can go, well, go jump. I'll record myself and put it out myself. And so the ability to concentrate talent, and with that concentration of talent, make exceptional art, has been eviscerated by the internet. As a result, it is vast seas of mediocrity. With occasional sparks of brilliance, but rarely the dry field necessary to turn it into a conflagration.
And it's not being cultivated the same way, because if you're just doing it yourself, your like you said, your resources for talent around you, production talent around you, is not there. You know what I mean?
What I love saying to my students is I explain how you get great. How you get great is never by listening to something I tell you. How you become great is that you have been concentrated, you have been put in the same vicinity as 4 others of your contemporaries. And the 5 of you are friends, but you're also competitors. You're in your early 20s, and there is a record company that's going to hand out a record contract to 1 of the 5 of you. That contract goes to somebody else, and you're gracious. And what you say is, congratulations. And then you go back to your room, and then you look at yourself in the mirror, and you promise whatever God will listen, that you will never feel this way again. And now you're practicing until your fingers bleed. Now you're not becoming good, you are becoming great, because you understand how it feels to be passed over for somebody else. And the only way through is to have that gatekeeper acknowledge you. And that makes really good art.
So I'd like to go to a commercial break and then come back and maybe have you close out the show with a song. Can you do that for us?
I certainly can, and you know how I feel about commercial breaks, very positively.
We'll be right back with Livingston Taylor. And we are back. Closing out the show is our guest tonight, Livingston Taylor.
Oh, thanks, David. And yeah, I picked up a guitar, and it's here in my hot little hand. So,
well, thank you so much for joining us. What song are you gonna close the show out with tonight?
I'm going to close out with a song, "With You I Belong." Ready? Now you will notice that I'm playing this with a fingering position viewable by your watchers. So I want all you guitar players out there to feel free to steal any part of this. Let's go fly, I've learned how. Stick out your arms, run real fast, pick up your feet, and wow, we're headed for the blue where things get clear. And that special place we tried to find is somehow oh so near. What a way to be with you, hand in hand above the clouds. I got loved you quite forever. Now I'm saying it right out loud. What a kick to open our eyes and watch the world go drifting on. Slap my seat, wiggle my feet. With you I belong. Oh, your touch is magic. Oh, your voice is music. Your easy smile reminds me I'm okay. And your eyes are clear and bright, filled with joy and light. And I cannot wait to know where our love will go today. Outer space, now that'll be fine. We'll kick it right up to the speed of light and drift back to the time before we met, before I knew that someday I'd see you smile and my life would all be new. Weightless when I'm in your orbit, gravity when you are near. I have loved you quite forever. Should I tell NASA that you're here? Voyager took a left at Pluto into the dark of the great beyond. Tag along and find new stars. Darling, where you are, I belong.
Once again, the clap from the audience of one.
Ah, that's fine. That's a nice applause indeed, David.